Hi everyone, this is AJ and welcome to episode 2 of my weekly watch roundup. Let's get into it. Okay, so if you're new to this series, this is a new series that I've started for 2022. We're on a Sunday, I'll just sit down and I'll talk about the things that I've watched over the course of the week. Now some of these things I will have reviewed and other things I won't have done, so I'll talk about them here. Film and TV. That's all related to, the sort of stuff that we're all interested in, this sort of a thing. But anyway, so I'll be honest, most of it's been TV this week. I've watched one film only, and that film was The Guest with Dan Stevens. Yeah, now it's a film I've not really been aware of. I know that they released a 4K version, a premium edition a little while ago that seemed to me to be way overpriced. And I wasn't tempted to get it. I bought this in CEX recently for £2.50. A blind buy, obviously. But £2.50, you can't go wrong. So, what did I think of this film? Well, it was intriguing. I'll give it that. But ultimately, it failed for me. I thought Dan Stevens was very good in the film. I'll give him that. I like him as an actor. And I thought he had great on-screen presence within this movie. However, I felt that the story let the film down. The story made little to no sense. So he's this soldier that's put himself into this military program to become a kind of super soldier, shall we say. And what he does, he goes and visits a family of people that he was friends with their son, their son has been killed, and he's come along to sort of, sort of give his best and all this sort of a thing, and help him out a little bit. They encourage him to stick around, and he does, and he starts helping out the son and the daughter to a degree, and all this sort of stuff, until you come to realise that because the characters in the film start digging into his past. As soon as they realise or find out who he is, and he is who he says he is, but he's not what he says he is. They don't know nothing about his thing in this secret experiment. And as soon as they find this out, he starts killing them, and he sort of like goes all Terminator mode and hunting them down and killing them, and yeah, it ends up in the school where the school's having this sort of party, and there's this maze that's been put in, all this sort of crap. And there's a fire, people get killed, the two kids survive from the family, and you think he's dead, but at the end he isn't dead. He walks out and sort of gives them a little wink. Not literally a wink, but that's how it's sort of perceived, that he's killed a fireman dressed up in his outfit, and off he goes. Now, why it makes little to no sense, because his sort of programming, shall we say, is once his identity is known, he has to off the people that knows who he is, and this sort of a thing. And it fails in this respect because he's gone to these people's houses and he's introduced himself as his real person, as to who he actually is. So this makes, you can see where this starts creating problems in the context of the story. Why would you go and do this if you know that if your identity is uncovered, you're going to kill the people that your program kick in, so to speak. I say programming, do you know what I mean? Whatever it is, will kick in, and you kill the people that know your identity. It's just like, okay, it just doesn't really work for me in that sense. And then at the very end, there's this fire. People get killed in this fire. There's 3 bodies. There would be 3 bodies, which would be this copper that's this military guy that's chasing him down, someone who works in the school, and himself, who they believe has died. But yet they say there's 2 bodies in there, teeth missing in one. You can assume that he's killed a fireman and taken his outfit, extracted teeth, and left. But they say 2 bodies, there should be 3 bodies. The 2 kids still know his identity, still know who he is, but yet he's walking off, which contradicts his so-called programming. And it just nonsense, really, nonsense. I can see why people like the film on face value. The idea is quite good and all this sort of a thing, but ultimately the execution of the film is pretty poor, to be in all honesty. Yeah, it's just not a very good movie, and I'm glad I didn't blind buy it on 4K in that prestige premium edition that they released. That would have been a complete waste of money. But it's subjective, and I understand that some people out there will like this film, and good luck to them. For me, you know, I liked the concept was good, the execution was poor. Let's just leave it at that. So that was the only film I watched this week. But then it was TV stuff. I've done quite a bit of binge watching. So first up, I binge watched Lost in Space, Season 3. Yeah, Netflix's Lost in Space. Now, I remember the original Lost in Space as a kid. I remember watching it on a Sunday afternoon in black and white, and when it went, you know, and there was colour ones as well later on as the series was made. The series was made before I was born, obviously, so these were reruns. Now, I like the Lost in Space TV series. It's a newer version. 3 seasons it run for, season 3 being its last season. Obviously, if the series did get a finale to it, it was finished. It wasn't left open-ended or anything like this. And it was a great series. However, I don't like Netflix's business model. You know, Netflix is all about subscriber numbers. Streaming services is all about subscriber numbers, and thusly with Lost in Space, once it got into season 2, it wasn't pulling in any new subscribers, so we want to cancel the show in favour of making something fresh to pull in more subscribers. And this happens a lot more often than not with shows on Netflix. And that there are a few shows that go longer. Stranger Things have, and Karate Kid. I know that's Cobra Kai, has been renewed for a series 5. Come on to that in a little bit. But yeah, so unfortunately you don't get time for characters to develop too much, for the growth. You want to see more, but they've done a good job in finishing it and giving you a finality. It had a bit of emotion to it and this sort of a thing. Wonderful special effects, very filmic, very, you know, sort of special effects you'd see on the big screen. And I can see why Netflix didn't want to continue the programme, because of the sheer cost of it. You know, you look at something like this and you must think, Christ, this must cost you millions and millions to produce. You know, it looks fantastic, the sets are fantastic, the costumes fantastic, special effects are fantastic. It's just all up there, you know. Heavily CGI programme. Just looks really, really good. I do, however, feel that the last season was rushed in elements. There were elements that played out off screen that could have been included on screen. So it did have that sort of feel to it. It's only 8 episodes this final season, but ultimately I was very impressed with it. I enjoyed it, and yeah. So if you've got the opportunity to watch it, I certainly would. It's a good show. Next up, I've watched is Cobra Kai, as you can see here. Cobra Kai season 4, I finished that, got to the end of that. Again, very enjoyable, although it is, you know, I know a lot of people have raved about this season. I don't think it's the strongest season. I feel that it's very repetitive in what it does each season. I feel that you know, you got this sort of, you know, I want to be your friend, but I can't be your friend, or people coming at friendship at different times, you know, and then the swapping of agendas and people swapping teams and all this sort of crap going on. It just gets like, yeah, this is, you know, and these people really, it's a world in which, you know, people are so into this sort of karate stuff that these gangs are formed and all this sort of thing, and they're doing each other in outside of the dojo and all this, and there's an element of reality to it that I just can't get into. But it's a really fun series. Don't get me wrong. Character of Johnny, is that his name? You know, the blonde-haired one. Names have eluded me now. He's fantastic. Ralph Macchio, you know, his character ain't that as good in it. You know, the other main character's the better one because there's more shades of grey to him, and the fact that he comes from this world where he hasn't updated himself with PC correctness and all this sort of stuff. So you got this show that is essentially is politically correct to a degree, but at the same time you've got a character in it who's written in such a way that he isn't politically correct. So he says things that you think that the show wouldn't, you know, is brave to get away with, but they're not brave to get away with it in the sense that they are getting away with it. They are doing politically correct stuff, but you've got a character who isn't politically correct, so says stuff and he's called out on it and all this sort of a thing. But, you know, so there is a sense of freshness to that, but underlying there isn't, you know. But, you know, it's a fun show, and again, this is a Netflix show at the moment. Originally it wasn't Netflix, but then it was, and this isn't bound by that sort of Netflix sort of so many seasons and we're going to cancel you, because this show's like half hour an episode. There's no real special effects or anything like that. It's just stunt choreography and fighting choreography, but beyond that, not a lot. So in comparison to something like Lost in Space, Cobra Kai is a very cheap show for them to make and produce, and thusly they can get away with continuing it. And I'm pretty sure that, you know, Cobra Kai in its later seasons has, I mean, I stepped into it when season 3 started. I wasn't interested. The Karate Kids, I don't mind them, but I don't think they're fantastic films. I'm not into martial arts or anything like this, so I was very reluctant going into this series. But when it reached season 3, I thought, okay, it's at season 3, I'll give it a try. There has to be some worth to it for it to have gone for this long and people still talking about it. And I was quite blown away with how much love it has for the films, and that the people who are writing it know what they're doing in regards to the films and bringing characters in from the film's history and the same actors and all this. So that I really like, and I appreciate that level of love that goes into this series. So yeah, so next up is Dexter, the season finale, which I've done a review for, and it's got tons of views, fantastic for me, for the channel. You know, within an hour it almost garnered 200 views, this review, so you can go and check it out, but I'll talk about it here. So yeah, Dexter series finale. Now this might go into spoilers. Obviously this is a series finale at the moment, because it ends how I knew it was going to end, because a couple of episodes they showed a gun in the series, and if you know anything about story writing for film and TV and Chekhov's gun, this sort of thing, it's a story trope where if something is shown, if a gun is shown in a program, this doesn't go for guns, this goes for anything, or in a film, inevitably that's going to come into use at some point later in play in the film or series. And the same element went for this gun that Dexter had gifted to his son for Christmas, a hunting rifle, and straight away, as soon as that happened, I knew, okay, this is how this show's going to play out, and it did play out in that way. Now I was very happy with this ending to Dexter, but it has sort of been very divisive. I've got a lot of comments saying it's the worst they've seen. They preferred how Dexter ended before, where he became the sort of logger, bearded logger, if you've watched Dexter. But for me, I like it when a show gives you that a finality, when it gives you an ending and doesn't give you an openness to it, where it's like a cash grab and a series ends in such a way that the company can continue with it to make more money later on down the line if they so wish. I think it's much braver for a show to have a certain finality to it. Now the original series of Dexter, when that ended, it ended with him going out into a storm on his boat, like a hurricane, and the boat getting overturned and all this sort of stuff. But we saw Dexter had survived that, and we caught up with him at the very end of the series, or that episode, as a logger living in Canada or whatever, being a tree fella. Yeah, so, and that was on these endings where it's like, oh, we can continue it if we want, but, you know, if we don't want to, we don't have to. Those sort of endings I don't particularly like. I would have preferred the ambiguity of him going out into this storm on his boat, and his boat being found, and reports that he was missing, and, you know, no one could have survived that storm, this sort of a thing. but we ultimately didn't get that. But yeah, so new series of Dexter I've really enjoyed. It has a bit of sloppy writing in it, don't get me wrong. There's some questions left unanswered and this sort of a thing, and characters that just were introduced and just vanished, and silly things like that. But ultimately a fantastic show. And Michael C. Hall just stepped back into this role as Dexter like he was never gone for nearly a decade. And the final thing that I watched was episode 9 of Blade Runner Black Lotus, which is a Japanese animated series set within the Blade Runner universe that follows a replicant named Elle, who was part of a hunt in the desert, and before she knew she was a replicant, she didn't have any real memories before this and this sort of thing, and she learns who she is and finds out about the hunt and that they were replicants and these humans were hunting them down for sport essentially, and she goes after the individuals that were hunting her down, high ups in like the sort of Wallace, the Tyrell Corporation, and she is chased by a Blade Runner himself that's introduced later in the series, and so yeah, every week I watch this series. Sometimes I watch it in its original English, in its original Japanese with English subtitles, but a few days later you can watch it with English tracks over the top. I don't mind watching foreign language films. I don't mind the subtitles. You know, yeah, it's fine. But anyway, so that's just a roundup of the stuff that I've watched this week. That was everything. So yeah, so tell me your thoughts. Have you watched any of that stuff? Do you plan on watching any of it? What have you watched this week? Have you watched anything that you can recommend to me to watch? Any films like that I may not have seen? Let me know in the comments down below. Anyway, so this is AJ. I'm going to get away, but like I said, every week, Sunday evening, I'll do a roundup of my weekly watching. Sometimes it might be more than others, but there you go. Anyway, this is AJ. Thanks for watching all, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care and goodbye.